I get to be dad to 3 amazing children, and I'm trying to do the best job I can to bring them up well, to pass on to them the most important things in life, like which football team to support. I recently had one of the greatest joys a father can experience, as my eldest son Elijah has freely chosen to support his dad's favourite team.
Is there room at your table if I knock at your door?
You see, I grew up as an Arsenal fan, and it has become socially acceptable to talk about Arsenal now because, if I'm honest, we've gone a bit rubbish in recent years. I sit down to watch matches with my son, and when we lose, which happens all too regularly nowadays, he looks at me with a confused expression as if to say, why? Why do we support this team? But as his dad, I tell him stories about Arsenal from when I was a kid, when we went a whole season without losing a game, stories of when we were invincible. I tell him about players I'd watch as a child, the greatest players to ever grace the Premier League. Players like Henry, the free-scoring Frenchman, Bergkamp, the Dutch wizard. And I tell him about Wrighty, Ian Wright, about the passion he played with and the goals he scored. I recently heard an interview with Wrighty, and he shared how he had grown up without a positive male role model. His father had left home when he was a small child, and his stepfather had been aggressive towards him. He shared how this experience had shaped him into an angry and confused child who started to get into trouble at school. It was while Ian was stood outside the classroom his teacher had sent him from that another teacher, Mr. Pigden, saw him stood there with his head hung low. Mr. Pigden went to walk past Ian, but instead in that moment he stopped and came and stood in front of him, and that was the moment that changed Ian Wright's life forever. Mr. Pigden became like a father to him, sharing wisdom with him about how to score great goals, but more importantly, he gave him responsibility, showing him how much he was valued and loved. Many years later, once Ian had lost contact with Mr. Pigden, assuming he had passed away, a TV crew surprised him during an interview when suddenly Mr. Pigden appears and embraces him. It is a beautiful moment as a father is reunited with his son.
Is there room at your table? Could you make a little space?
This story reminds me of the letter we find in the Bible written by Paul to the church in Corinth. A church full of people who Paul had led to faith, people who he referred to as his brothers, sisters, and his dear children. So when Paul hears of arguments among them, he pleads with them to listen to him and not to the so-called teachers in the church who were causing disunity. Appealing to them as a dad appeals to his children, he reminds them of their relationship, telling them that even if they have 10,000 teachers in Christ, they do not have many fathers, but that through the gospel, he, Paul, had become their father. Wright attended a school that was full of teachers, but what he needed most was a father. At times the church has been full of teachers, but what the world needs most is fathers, mothers, brothers and sisters who don't just teach people how to follow Jesus, but who come alongside their lives and show them the way of Jesus. People aren't looking to attend a meeting, they are looking to join a family. My wife Emma was out one day when a young boy and his mum, who had recently become part of our church family, spotted her. The boy pointed at Emma and shouted to his mum, "There's church, there's church." Church to this amazing boy was my wife, not a building or a service, but a person who had welcomed, cared and loved him like family, because that is what he was.